Welcome to this explainer. We live in an era of just unprecedented connectivity. We have the world at our fingertips, yet so many of us feel completely overwhelmed and burnt out. Today, we're diving straight into how timeless philosophical concepts, specifically practical wisdom rooted in ancient Christian philosophy like rest, forgiveness, gratitude, and humility, offer this profound, grounding antidote to our modern crises. We're going to look at how modern science is actually proving that these ancient virtues might just be exactly what we need to solve very modern problems, like anxiety and social media comparison.
Take a look at this quote by author Matt Haig. He really hits the nail on the head regarding a wild modern paradox. We are constantly sold the idea of our own deficiency. Think about it. Whether we're endlessly scrolling through social media or being bombarded by ads, our feelings of falling behind? They're actually manufactured by systems designed from the ground up to keep us scrolling, striving, and constantly questioning our own progress and self-worth based on everyone else's highlight reels.
So that leaves us with a pretty massive question. How on earth do we find peace on a nervous planet? We've really got to ask ourselves how to restore our mental health in this hyper-connected world. How do we tear our attention away from these frantic metrics, the follower counts, the endless productivity goals, and instead pivot toward quiet, ancient virtues that actually sustain real human flourishing?
Which brings us to Section 1, the modern anxiety epidemic.
Now, the psychological toll of our daily grind is undeniably heavy. But interestingly enough, this isn't an entirely new problem. Actually, even ancient thinkers, like the Roman statesman Seneca, recognized that racing faster only makes us more entangled in our own stress. He pointed out that while foresight is a good thing, it quickly becomes toxic when it morphs into excessive worry about hypothetical futures that haven't even happened yet. Our brains are essentially doing this constant mental time travel to imaginary problems. Today, psychologists call this meta-anxiety. It's this relentless self-reinforcing loop where imagination combines with emotion and it completely disconnects us from the present. We literally get so worked up about what might happen that we become anxious about being anxious.
Let's move into Section 2, unconditional worth, and the concept of imago Dei.
To fight back against that overwhelming pressure of meta-anxiety and manufactured deficiency, we can actually look to an ancient declaration of human rights found right at the origins of early Christian philosophy. We're looking at a stark contrast between two totally different worldviews here. On one side, we have our modern society that measures your worth by views, performance, and endless output. But on the other side, we have this deeply liberating ancient wisdom, imago Dei, or the idea that humans are made in the image of the divine. This concept insists that you are born completely whole. You have inherent unconditional value just by existing. Think about a newborn baby. Nobody looks at a newborn and sees deficiency or a lack of output, right? They just see perfection.
This perfectly sets up Section 3, Sabbath, or the radical rest.
Because think about it, if we inherently possess worth just by existing, then we definitely don't need to endlessly produce to earn our value. A huge source of our modern restlessness is this feeling that our work is just never, ever done. But ancient Jewish and Christian traditions teach us something fascinating about resting. It isn't just taking a break because you're exhausted to the bone. It's actually the active, joyful completion of our work. Yes, even if your to-do list isn't totally empty. You're essentially mirroring that divine rest that followed creation. You stop to simply enjoy what is, rather than desperately chasing what's next.
So, how do we actually do this? Well, to combat burnout with this kind of radical rest, we can follow a really practical, secular-friendly checklist. Number 1, keep the day distinctly different from your normal workdays. Number 2, literally rest your mind from the mere thought of labor. Just let it go. And 3, perhaps most importantly, prioritize deep leisure. Instead of packing our weekends full of exhausting errands and dissipating our time, we need to focus on just having time. We should be spending it on things that actually refresh our souls and deepen our social connections.
Moving right along to Section 4, humility in a driven world.
Beyond radically changing how we rest, there is another incredibly powerful tool against this modern pressure to be absolutely flawless, and it's a deeply misunderstood virtue. True humility isn't about lacking self-confidence or beating yourself up. Not at all. As C.S. Lewis so brilliantly put it, it's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
It's all about shifting that intense focus away from our own ego. A truly humble leader admits their own limitations, proactively champions their team, and empowers others. It essentially replaces those negative, anxiety-inducing thought patterns with genuine positivity and connection. And we've seen this play out on the world stage. Think of high-performing athletes like Simone Biles, who famously had to step away from competition because the crushing pressure to be perfect became too much. Humble leadership is a game changer because it normalizes mistakes. It creates these crucial safe spaces where we can bring our authentic, fallible human selves to the table. And the research completely backs this up. When leaders openly admit they don't know everything, it significantly improves the mental health and workplace well-being of both the employees and the leaders themselves. Let's dive into Section 5, the neurobiology of gratitude. We've talked a lot about philosophy, but what actually happens in our bodies when we shift our attention away from what we lack and toward what we have? Well, it turns out the ancient practice of counting your blessings is entirely biologically validated. The science of gratitude is amazing. It acts as a powerful intervention that physically slows our heart rate by increasing what's called our vagal tone. It actively lowers cortisol, which is our primary stress hormone, and it floods our brain's reward system with dopamine and serotonin, stabilizing our mood and generating real feelings of happiness. Honestly, it's essentially free medicine for your nervous system. And this gets even better because of a concept called Hebbian plasticity. You might have heard the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. Because of this, keeping something like a gratitude journal doesn't just give you a temporary, fleeting mood boost. It actively reorganizes and rewires your neural pathways. With consistent practice, you are quite literally training your brain to automatically scan the world for positives rather than constantly looking out for threats. You are systematically weakening those deeply worn circuits for stress and negativity. Which brings us to our final core concept in Section 6, forgiveness and human flourishing.
If we want to achieve lasting peace in a nervous world, we have to release the heavy burden of resentment. And this is a concept that perfectly bridges ancient theology, which puts a huge emphasis on grace and wiping the slate clean, right over to modern clinical psychology. The stress and coping model of forgiveness shows us that holding on to a grudge keeps our bodies in a chronic state of high alert and severe physiological stress. Unforgiveness breeds blame, shame, and anger, and those things just erode our mental and physical health. But on the flip side, choosing to forgive is this incredibly proactive, healthy coping mechanism that dramatically drops our anxiety, reduces depression, and believe it or not, even improves our sleep.
Now, what's really interesting here is that forgiveness doesn't just reduce our misery, it actively builds up our capacity to flourish. According to the scaffolding self and social systems model, it promotes happiness by maintaining relationship harmony, which we know is absolutely crucial for long-term well-being. Plus, whether we are forgiving someone else or accepting forgiveness ourselves, it helps us establish a deeply compassionate identity and really deepens our own self-acceptance. So, the crucial takeaway here is this. We live in an economy engineered from the top down to make us feel perpetually behind and insufficient. Systems that leverage our fear and doubt just to change our behavior. So, stepping back to realize our inherent worth, remember that idea of imago Dei, the fact that we lack absolutely nothing essential right from birth? That realization is the ultimate form of resistance. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought to end this explainer. What if the absolute most profound way to heal our minds and bodies isn't found in a flashy new app or a 10-step productivity life hack or buying the next big thing? What if, instead, it's found in the quiet, ancient courage to put down our work and actually rest, to forgive those who have wronged us, and to simply be deeply grateful for this present moment, exactly as it is?